I'm Dr. Brian Keene, and I'm running for Congress in Idaho's Congressional District 2. Our nation, our state, and our political party are in crisis. To restore our great nation to what it once was and our great state to what it once was, we need to refocus on our values and on taking real actions which are consistent with those values. We can no longer allow extremists from either party to detract from our values or from our actions. That's why I want to share my personal values along with this brief history of the Republican Party and my vision of bringing back core Republican values by restoring moderate conservatism. If you like what you're hearing, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and share this video with your friends on social media. In the mountain states of Idaho, Utah, Wyoming, and Montana, the heart of the American West, Idaho is known for its stunning landscapes and tight-knit communities. However, as the upcoming congressional race approaches, the political landscape is becoming increasingly polarized. Amidst this backdrop, moderate conservatism is emerging as a crucial voice to bridge divides and foster unity. Let's start with a brief history of the Republican Party and what led to its development. Although the Republican Party started in 1854, its roots existed long before that. The Whig Party, formed in 1834 in the United States, was based on the Whigs from before the American Revolution. The Whigs from before the Revolution were the progressives or patriots that supported the Revolution in opposition to the Conservatives, the Tories, who supported remaining loyal to England and to King George. In fact, the Republican Party from 1854 and well into the mid-1970s were actually the Progressive Party. Some of their progressive accomplishments include freeing the slaves by fighting the Civil War and passing the 13th Amendment, establishing due process and citizenship rights with the 14th Amendment, establishing and protecting voting rights for racial minorities and former slaves by passing the 15th Amendment, establishing and protecting voting rights for women with passage of the 19th Amendment, establishing corporate regulations, environmental conservation, and worker protections, passing civil rights legislation, and establishing a woman's right to an abortion and to obtain credit in her own name by supporting Roe v. Wade and passing the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. Yet, there are Republicans today who think of the word progressive as a dirty word. Moderate conservatism can easily be characterized by a balanced approach to governance, emphasizing fiscal responsibility, social stability, individual human rights, states' rights, and pragmatic solutions. Unlike extreme factions on either side of the political spectrum, moderate conservatives advocate for policies that appeal to a broader audience, aiming to unite rather than divide. We're looking to unite Idahoans, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, and even non-registered voters with a vision of protecting Idaho from the extremists in Washington, D.C., who are trying to divide our state and our country against itself. Let's start with fiscal responsibility. Moderate conservatives prioritize balanced budgets and responsible spending. They believe in reducing wasteful expenditures while ensuring that essential services are fully funded. That's why I'm pushing for passage of the SMART, Stable Maintenance and Responsible Taxation Amendment, and Balanced Budget Amendment, which were presented in my previous video, the Bill of Accountability, and will be presented separately in future videos. Moving on to social stability. This approach values traditional social structures, but is open to reform when necessary. It seeks to maintain community values while adapting to changing societal norms, upmost among them absolute respect for and guarantee of protection for individual human rights, which is why I am pushing for passage of a Personhood and Human Rights Amendment protecting the personhood status of all living, breathing, born human beings, regardless of race or gender. Let's examine what is meant by the idea of pragmatic solutions. Rather than adhering strictly to ideology, moderate conservatives focus on practical solutions that address real-world problems using real-world solutions. This often involves collaboration with individuals across the political spectrum, which is why I authored the co-sponsorship clause in the proposed Legislative Accountability Amendment, requiring all bills presented in either House of Congress to be co-sponsored by both parties. True action requires both commitment and cooperation. Our country cannot succeed if our Congress continues in chaos and confusion. Idaho is recognized as one of the most conservative states in the nation. So how is moderate conservatism going to appeal to the state of Idaho? Well, Idahoans have a long history of valuing independence and self-reliance, traits that align well with moderate conservatism. In a state where agriculture, small business, and outdoor recreation are vital, a moderate conservative approach can resonate with many voters. The rise of extreme political factions is destroying our party and wreaking havoc in our nation, making it difficult for moderate voices to be heard. Many voters feel pressured to align with more radical ideologies, fearing that moderate positions may be seen as weak or indecisive. There were three major extremist problems which created two major extremist factions, which are currently destroying our party from the inside and creating chaos, confusion, and distrust in our nation's capital. Let's start by examining what I refer to as the Tea Party invasion. The billionaire Koch brothers took advantage of an independent libertarian party movement which called themselves the Tea Party to undermine the effectiveness and efficiency of the Republican Party from 2005 to 2009. Their goal was to undermine the Republican Party platform by pushing anti-conservative, anti-government candidates into important positions and push mainstream Republican candidates to the sidelines. This invasion and these Tea Party candidates, namely Sarah Palin and Paul Ryan, caused us to lose what should have been easily winnable presidential elections in 2008 and 2012. Let's move on to an even bigger problem, which I refer to as the Trump conundrum. As a result of the Tea Party invasion, libertarians, pretending to be Republicans, pushed billionaire Donald Trump, a lifelong Democrat whose father and grandfather had been Democratic Party bosses in New York for over 70 years, as a Republican candidate for president in 2012, but he decided not to run. In 2016, Donald Trump did run as a Republican, at which time most mainstream Republicans warned us that his nomination would be extremely dangerous to the party, which it turned out to be true, as he did accidentally win both the nomination and the presidency, leading into the most tumultuous and deadly 4 years the country had ever seen. Prior to losing the 2020 election, Donald Trump, during the presidential debate, gave direct instructions on national television to white nationalist terrorist organizations, the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers, to, quote, stand back and stand by, unquote, as he knew that he was already losing the election and wanted them to prepare for violence to prevent him from having to leave office. On January 6, 2021, the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, specifically following Trump's direct orders, mingled with peaceful protesters for cover and then marched on the U.S. Capitol for the specific purpose of terrorizing Congress into not certifying the legitimate election results, a terrorist attack for the sole purpose of undermining or overthrowing the legitimately elected government of the United States. During the years between 2021 and 2024, Trump was charged with multiple crimes by several states and investigated for crimes by the federal government. He was found guilty of attempting to manipulate election results in multiple states, found guilty of 34 felonies surrounding financial fraud, found guilty of sexual assault and slander of the sexual assault victim, and was charged with and has ongoing investigations for several counts of sexually assaulting minors. Even today, we are still facing a problem which I refer to as the maggot infestation. As a direct result of Trump's election, anti-American, anti-conservative fringe groups began calling themselves conservatives and using an abbreviation of one of Trump's campaign slogans, Make America Great Again, MAGA, on hats and clothing as a way to identify themselves and each other while demonstrating against law enforcement officials, judges, political candidates, and churches, and participating in terrorist activities against racial and religious minorities and against the LGBTQ. These terrorist organizations wearing MAGA gear continue to issue death threats to celebrities, to political candidates, to judges, to law enforcement officials, and to racial minorities and religious minorities and the LGBTQ. Shortly after returning to office, Trump pardoned all of these terrorists who attacked the Capitol on January 6, 2021, and many of them were offered and accepted federal jobs with Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, where they are currently participating in government-sanctioned terrorist activities targeting racial and religious minorities and political opponents under the guise of enforcing immigration laws. These actions have resulted in roughly 200 unlawful detentions of U.S. citizens, with at least 4 being shot and killed, and at least 7 being shot and injured in the last year. Prior to January 2025, ICE has never fired on a U.S. citizen. Between 2015 and 2025, fewer than 70 U.S. citizens were detained. Moderate conservatism is often misunderstood. Some may view it as a lack of conviction or commitment to core conservative principles. It can be seen as weakness instead of strength. These perceptions can hinder the ability of moderate candidates to gain traction among voters, which installs extremist candidates that can't operate effectively once elected. To effectively advocate for moderate conservatism, strong leadership is essential. Candidates and party leaders must articulate their vision clearly and demonstrate how moderate policies can lead to positive outcomes for Idaho and for the United States of America. By promoting moderate voices, the political discourse in Washington, D.C. can shift from divisive rhetoric to constructive dialogue. This can foster improved policy outcomes, help bridge divides within our country, and foster a sense of unity and collaboration. As the country prepares for the midterm elections, supporting moderate conservatism is more important than ever. By advocating for fiscal responsibility, social stability, and pragmatic solutions, moderate conservatives can offer a compelling alternative to the extremes of the political spectrum. The future of Idaho and of the United States depends on the ability of its leaders to unite its citizens and work towards common goals. Encouraging moderate voices in the upcoming election is not just about politics. It's about building a stronger, more inclusive country for all of our citizens. As voters, it's essential to consider the impact of our choices and support moderate conservative candidates who embody true American values. Together, we can pave the way for a brighter future in this great nation and a more secure and successful Idaho. I'm Dr. Brian Keene, and I'm ready to serve Idaho, to listen and to lead. Together, let's work to build a brighter future for Idaho families, for the state of Idaho, and for the United States of America. Help send me to Washington, D.C. Be sure to visit my website, KeeneForIdaho.com. And again, thank you so much for your time.